Here we go then, guys. 3 days to go until NFL football kicks off. 6 until the Browns take on the Bengals. Let's do our season predictions. It's a season predictions pod here at the Believeland Brits podcast.
Same old Browns, boys! Just the same old Browns!
Garrett's going to get him, and he knocks the ball away. Caught by Donovan Peoples-Jones! Touchdown! He got it! He got Chubb! He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown!
Wow, what a struggle! The way it should be, I guess. Brownies, here we go! Woo, woo. Here we go, Brownies!
Yes, very, very close now to the start of the season. The preseason is over, and we are just days away from Browns versus Bengals. With me, as per usual, are my two Believeland Brits beside me. Sean, are you looking forward to? Are you excited? We're not talking at all about Browns Bengals today. We'll do that later in the week. But how are you feeling, bud? Excited?
I'm excited. I'm a bit confused, though, to be honest. I thought football started in the autumn, and it seems like the summer's just sort of finally popped its head up to say hello, doesn't it? So a little bit confusing, but yeah, all joking aside, can't wait to get rocking and rolling now. The pre-season finally in the rearview window. So yeah, bring it on, mate. Bring it on.
Absolutely. Sean brings up a good point, actually. If anyone hears fans in the background of this podcast, we do not apologise. It is absolutely roasting, of which means it's about 22 degrees. Just can't deal with it. Owain, is it the same in Wales? I have to admit, I have not checked your part of the world. Are you dealing with some undue heat?
Yeah, it is warm here. I've got every window I can possibly open at the minute. So, yeah, I'm not a great sleeper in the heat, so I'm hoping it cools down a bit in here.
Yeah, one of the best purchases that I think that we ever made as a couple was getting a proper, person height fan that can do an entire room. It has been on pretty much non-stop throughout the summer because I hate humidity, but it'll be getting a good usage tonight, that's for sure. But we're not here to talk about the weather, as British as that might be. No, we're here to talk about our season predictions for the 2023 season, which it's a good time to do it because I've not yet done my bets yet for the NFL season. So this is a good bit of research for me, but it's also a good finger in the wind test for everyone else. I asked both Owain and Sean, and also UK Browns fans at large. Thank you to everyone who decided to take part in the little survey that we passed around. We got quite a few responses in the end, and it's created quite a picture. And something that I can definitely say, guys, is that Browns fans do think like us. So we are definitely not too dissimilar, but there are a few outliers for sure. Owain was definitely the outlier king last year, coming out with 3 or 4 bangers that pretty much all hit. Sean wasn't part of it last year, so this is a debut season for Sean on the old predictions. As you might imagine, Sean being the more optimistic of the trio, only ever slightly more optimistic, and why not as pessimistic this year? This has been fun. Anyway, that's the preview of it all. Let's get into it. If you're following on the video version of this, you should be able to see the screen now populating with what it is that we've chosen. We'll go week by week. It's something that we did last year. We went week by week for the Browns schedule, see as to how everyone's feeling. So we've got week 1, for example, at the Bengals. Now, obviously, the Bengals, one of the top 5 teams, if not closer, in the NFL. But it seems to be that our bogey team status, I suppose you'd call it, with the Bengals seems to have rung true with pretty much everyone here. Myself, Owain, and Sean, all with wins down for this one. And Browns fans at 84% saying win there. Owain, are we maybe a little too optimistic here in that? That seems very, very positive for what is going to be a very difficult clash early doors.
Yeah, I think most of us would have probably made this prediction not knowing that Joe Burrow was likely going to play. So, if we were all making this prediction now, it'd probably be I would imagine the percentage would be a little bit different. That said, I do think, the Bengals and the Ravens, you're looking at probably splitting those two over the season. Obviously, one win and one loss, and then sweeping the Steelers. So, you've got to beat them at some time. And, Browns have got a pretty good record against the Bengals over the last sort of four seasons since Stefanski's been there. So hopefully he still has their number come next Sunday.
Absolutely. And Sean, I think this one was a no-brainer for you, really. You very much enjoy the times that the Bengals come to play the Browns. Very much a case of keeping the run going. By all things concerned, we should be very happy at Felson's for our little kickoff watch party next week.
Yeah, fingers crossed, mate. Like you say, we seem to have had the hoodoo on them for the last few years, even when they have obviously sort of ascended to the top of the division for whatever reason. The Browns have still had a pretty decent record against them. And that's even with Joe Burrow playing. It obviously makes a difference, but, we talked about it earlier on in the season. We won't get into the game too much and spoil the podcast coming up later in the week, but, we said Joe Burrow missed a lot of preseason last year, came back and threw 4 interceptions week 1 against the Steelers. So, is Joe Burrow playing really enough to sort of swing it one way or another? I think we probably underestimate how important training camp and all of that kind of stuff is. We sort of experienced that ourselves last year for different reasons. So I'm not overly surprised, and we are genuinely an optimistic bunch, Browns fans, generally speaking, when you consider how poor we have been for as long as we have been. We were in Walkabout last year, weren't we, celebrating our first week 1 win in 17 years. And now all of a sudden we think we're going to get 2 on the bounce back to back. So I can't say I'm surprised by it, but look, I don't think anyone's predicting this is going to be a massive win. I think it's going to be a tight game. But yeah, good to see that people are certainly optimistic to start the season. Why the hell not?
Yeah. Well, they definitely are, because week 2, once again, all 3 of us have picked a win at the Steelers to start us off. Owain, as you said, looking to potentially sweep the Steelers. Browns fans were less optimistic in general, 56%. I think mainly because it is at, I was going to say Heinz Field there. I can't even think of what they've called the stadium now. I want to say Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, Acupuncture Stadium or something like that.
Yeah. But all getting into the win columns there. Moving on to the Titans, I'm flying through it just because there's some agreement, really. There's no need to dwell too much while we're agreeing. 88% of Browns fans say a win at home to the Titans, and also all 3 of us saying win there as well. The Titans are not seen to be as good as they have been in previous years, even. Sorry, not weeks. I mean, maybe also weeks, but seeing as to how they have started to look towards retooling, that's definitely one argument to make. And now we have some disagreement. In week 4, home to the Ravens, both Owain and I have gone with a loss to the Ravens. Sean is the lone survivor for a 4-0 start. Browns fans are split 50-50 on this. Sean, give us your... I'm trying to think of the right word. Give us your reasoning is probably... sell us on the Browns winning this game and going 4-0 to start the year.
I think the fact that it's at home is really what probably swayed me. And I think if the first 3 results go the way that we've all predicted, I think the Browns will be on a hell of a high. It's a great opportunity to start the season with a huge amount of momentum and get 3 divisional games on the board. I've seen various different things sort of ranging from the Browns sort of going 1-5 in the division to splitting the division, right the way through to people saying they'll sweep the division, which I think is incredibly optimistic. But if they get these first 3 in, then worst case scenario, you're splitting the division. You're going to be right in contention right the way throughout the season, if that is indeed the case. I just think, like I say, off the back of potentially 3 wins, 2 of those being in division, you'd like to think, probably doing them a disservice to some extent, but, you just said so yourself there. I think in terms of the Titans, for me, they're a contender to be in the conversation for, top 5 draft pick this year, Tennessee. I think there's a real sort of quandary they've got at quarterback. Sorry, that low? Yeah, I think so.
Low.
I think so. I think if you look at the roster overall, I think it's a pretty poor roster from top to bottom. There's not a huge amount of playmakers. I know they obviously brought in DeAndre Hopkins, but, they've got mountains of questions at quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's obviously dropped off in the last 2 years. They've drafted rookies now in 2 consecutive drafts, but don't particularly appear to be confident with either of them. I actually think the Tennessee game, I wouldn't say it's a stat padding game, but I think that could be one for the first time in a long time that the Browns win a shade handily. And if that is the case, then like I said, I just think they'll be full of momentum going into this one in week 4. Like I say, a great opportunity to put potentially a little bit of a stranglehold on the division as well.
Well, that's definitely got me fired up. Owain, for me, it's the fact that if we're playing Lamar Jackson, no matter what, just seems to have something on us. And I just have this sinking feeling of Odell Beckham Jr. winning it in the 4th quarter. I mean, what led you to the loss? Is it around those lines? Maybe not with the added metaphor at the end, but was it more the Jackson factor?
Yeah, I think what you tend to get with Lamar Jackson over the last few years is incredibly strong starts to the season. I think he's a lot more likely to play in this first one than he is in the second one, which is why I think I have, a split.
I think we have. I think that we both flipped it later on in the season.
Yeah. So that was my thought process behind it. I think it's hard to see them going 4-0. I would, love to see it happening. I agree with Sean. I think the Titans should be a rollover game there, which would lead them into this game with a lot of confidence. So it is, you can see a world where they do start 4-0 and they win this game. But I think I was going to go with a split against the Ravens no matter what. And the Jackson playing, likely playing the first game and maybe not playing the second game would sway it this direction for me.
No, that's totally fair. Now, I think week 5 is the bye, isn't it? Not week 6. I've put week 6 down here as the bye, but I'm pretty sure it's 5. I have to admit, I can't remember. But in any case, the game against the 49ers, next up at home, all of us have said, look, Brock Purdy is going to come into Cleveland Browns Stadium and do an absolute number on us, according to this. 27% of Browns fans believe in the win as well. So that's I think one actually said a draw in that one, which was entertaining. We've had quite a few draws actually in our voting, of which has been nice. It was the reason as to why the Baltimore game was on 50% as well, because someone actually put in a tie to break the to break the balance. But this is probably less about Purdy and more about scheme, isn't it? The fact that their defense is very, very strong can definitely take out the kind of things that Watson does well, for example, able to stop the run game quite efficiently. But then also it's the kind of tiki-taka offense the 49ers play, that it's all about efficiency. It's about just, constantly moving the chains. And predominantly it's the kind of offense that we've hated playing against and never been able to get right. As to whether or not we're able to completely change that through our newly built defensive line and all the rest of it is one thing, but I think that we're all rightly down on this one. And then it also stops the potential of a 5-0 run, of which I think even the most optimistic Browns fan might be just a little too far-fetched with there. So after the bye, this is definitely after the bye now. So it's week 7. The Colts game at Lucas Oil Stadium. All of us put win. 81% of Browns fans believe so as well. I actually thought it was quite low for this. Maybe they see it as a bit of a trap game with it being away from home. But unless Anthony Richardson decides to be absolutely incredible, I don't see this being anything other than this, right? Can anyone even put a doubt in my mind?
No, they're fighting for the number 1 overall pick again.
Yeah, apparently
this
against
year
the
along with
Titans,
the
according to you guys.
Cardinals.
Yeah. So yeah, surprised to see that low, but maybe it's just the fact that the name carries the weight a bit more than the actual situation. Now, this one I found interesting. So week 8, we go to Seattle. Both of yourselves have put loss down for this, and the Browns fans in general as well at 27% on the win, so they're expecting a loss too. I'm the lone carrier here of the win, of which is so I'm going to try and sell you on it myself here. I think that this Browns team is going to be very good against the teams that it should be beating on paper. You know, if you think about it in terms of just rosters on paper as to who's better than us and who's worse than us, I feel that the Browns this year, especially with their defense bolstering up the way that it is, if Deshaun Watson can get back to even part way of his form from a few years back, you know, obviously we're taking all of this into consideration, but this is a game that the Browns should be winning on the road. It's one of the road games that we should be taking. I can definitely understand some negative points against, for example, long trip out west. We've not necessarily done well with trips out west in recent years. You know, Geno Smith has definitely been a lot better than a lot of people predicted. And also, when you look at more the offense and the defense nowadays, I think with the Seahawks, you find that as well. But, you know, I believe that we've got enough to be making this a 1-score game. I don't see this being a blowout by any means, but a 1-score game that, you know, we definitely take charge of towards the latter stages. I mean, feel free to, feel free to talk me down.
I think you're probably doing the Seahawks a little bit of a disservice there in terms of how good their roster is. For me, I think they'll be really competitive this year. I think when you look at the QB situation there, you know, some may argue that it's not ideal, but, you know, when you're comparing them to the Browns, I think, you know, it's a no contest in terms of last year. Like you said, offensively, they've got 3 unbelievable weapons in Metcalf, Lockett, and Smith and Jigba. They've got a really good secondary as well. Invested first-round pick in there this year. They had Tariq Woolen last year, obviously. So, you know, Jamal Adams there as well. Probably, well, he'll be well back in time for this game. So, you know, if the Browns are going to do anything in this game, I think it'll be thanks to the trench play, because that's probably where the Browns had the biggest advantage over the Steelers, both sides of the ball. But again, you talk about the travel, long distance travel. The Seahawks fan base is very, very good, very loud. It's a tough place to play. So I think if they manage to go to the Seahawks and win, that would be massive. Plus, by the way, I believe they're wearing those amazing.
Yes, it is Alternative Uni Day in Seattle, which is very good for us. I mean, maybe not from a performance perspective, but just being able to watch them in something that's even slightly palatable compared to their usual dreck. I know that it's either a love it or hate it, but I'm firmly on the hate side of that. Anyone remember the Stabilo highlighter Color Rush unis that they used to wear?
Yeah,
was that a Noah one?
The light green one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The all light green.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah. And they would only wear that on Thursday Night Football, which means that they really did look like highlighters. They deserve to lose just for that. Not even going to touch on this one, guys. So, Cardinals come to Cleveland Brown Stadium. 96% of Browns fans think that we beat the Cardinals there, and as Owine's already pointed out, they are pretty much in lockstep for the number 1 pick. I kind of hope that Josh Dobbs plays that game, and it's possible as well because Kyler Murray can only really seem to stick around for a certain amount of time in a year, and he's going to be slow coming back anyway.
Very much
Now,
chance they get 1 and 2 this year, which would be incredible if they win for the draft.
Yes, it would, wouldn't it? Turns out that I actually had us to lose to the Ravens twice. That's interesting. So Sean seems to have gone. Sean, am I right in saying that you've switched to the loss here for the Ravens because of splitting it and then being at home?
Correct, mate. Yeah, nothing more exotic than that. Like you say, I think it's got a sort of split written all over it, and just giving each side the win at home.
Yeah, and Owine, you've put the win due to potentially being Jackson-less by week 10.
Yeah, or just the fact that he seems to start the season on fire and then slowly decline afterwards. So that plays into the reasoning.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. 15% of Browns fans think we'll win that one. So that's interesting. Steelers at home, win, 88%. Are we not writing off the Steelers a bit too much here? Just wondering. That's two rather big numbers there for the Steelers games. I'm just wondering if we're maybe being a bit overzealous.
I just think a lot's been made about Kenny Pickett in terms of what he's done in pre-season and in terms of supposed development. But, for me, he's not exactly starting from a high point. I think he needs to improve significantly for the Steelers to be anything like competitive. And again, for me, I think if you look at it if you take emotion out of it and you just look at it player for player along the rosters, there's not many in the Pittsburgh lineup that you would swap out, across the division, if we're being honest. There's not a huge amount that are there. TJ Watt's the obvious standout. He'd probably walk into every team, not only in our division, probably across the league. But outside of that, Minkah Fitzpatrick, there's an argument that could be made. Cam Hayward's been an incredible professional, but he's certainly on the back nine of his career. But more important, if you look at the offensive side of it, Deontay Johnson didn't score a touchdown last year. George Pickens, he's remembered for a couple of nice highlight catches, but outside of that, the actual level of production wasn't there. Allen Robinson has been a bomb for the last couple of years. So if you look in terms of the skill players, Najee Harris, he's a 3.3 yards a carry running back. Whether there's a hole there or not, Najee Harris doesn't seem to be able to exploit it. So I don't see a huge amount on the Steelers roster to worry at. I'll give them a couple of extra wins a year because of the coaching. Simple as that. My views on Mike Tomlin, I think he's phenomenal. And he will absolutely get the best out of them. But I think from a pure talent perspective, like I say, for me, you look at it position by position, and the Browns roster certainly seems stronger, I would suggest.
No, very, very fair point there. It's all right. It's only because I think I just have PTSD when it comes to the Steelers. Personally, I think that's my main regret. There's usually a way that they steal one of these games that it looks like that we really should win, of which is one of those. Right, I'm up next again as the outlier. Week 12. This is where the season starts, and we go to the Denver Broncos on Thanksgiving weekend. I've put the loss. Owine, Sean, and Browns fans all saying win. 62% on the fans. So this is what the Seahawks is to you guys. Basically, I sort of looked at Seahawks and Broncos and thought we're going to win one and lose one, and I put the loss being at the Broncos. I think that, we're going to have hard-fought games against Seattle and Pittsburgh, and then we might just tire out against the Broncos and fall short in what is in itself a difficult condition. Playing in Denver's never exactly easy. I think that Denver are going to be a bit better than people have them down for after last year. I think that last year was a lot down to coaching more than anything else. It's still a very good roster. I think that Sean Payton will definitely whip them in line. Russell Wilson's still a good quarterback. It's definitely not one that's going to be easy. I can just say, you can basically take my Seahawks optimism and my Broncos pessimism and put it into a 50-50 pot. As I try to do on these things, I try to find the similarities there. Owain, do you want to talk me into a bit of positivity here?
No, I think you make a decent point. I just think that by this time of the season, I think the Broncos have got a better chance than not of being a real mess. If Russell Wilson doesn't start the season really well, there's going to be all sorts of questions about whether, this is just him now or, whatever. And then that question start getting asked of Sean Payton, I would imagine, and whether he's willing to move on from him and so on and so forth. So I think by week 12, I think there's a big opportunity for the Broncos to be a mess. I do think that the defense is very, very good. So if our offense doesn't look good by week 12, there's a chance that this is a real low-scoring slugfest. And it could be a real bad game to watch. But I do think we come out of this one with a win. And I think there's a much better chance of beating the Broncos than there is the Seahawks for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, to answer you could have just flipped a coin in my head as to which one I picked. I just really want to beat the Seahawks in those jerseys. I want a positive memory with those jerseys. Let's not talk about the Rams. Yes, we are going to, in quotation marks, Rams house, but they are one of those teams that are looking towards the bottom of the barrel. 85% of Browns fans think that we'll win there. I think a couple of those that didn't say yes were ties. I think that they were just looking to make it interesting at that point. But all wins from us as we get to 14. The first full agreement on a loss, gents. This is our first full agreement on a loss across all three of us and also Browns fans. 42% think we'll get the win against the Jags at home. Potentially a bit too much respect on the Jags. I mean, Owain, I know that you are.
Me and Sean have been on the train for a full year now, so.
Yes, you have both. To be fair to you both, you have both been on the train. I've been a lot more delayed in getting onto the train. This was another one where I was probably about the same percentage of the Browns fans in my head. I was about 42% thinking that we could get a win, but I did end up heading into the loss column. God, that is a high percentage. All saying win in Week 15 against the Bears. 92% of Browns fans think we'll get the win there. Sean, is that potentially writing off Justin Fields a bit too much?
I wouldn't say it's writing off Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields had a decent season last year, but even with a decent season, they ended up with a 3-14 record. He needs an awful lot of help on that roster. I think it's obviously landed well for them in terms of being able to trade the number one pick and get some capital, and they've done a reasonable job. But I do think it's going to be a couple of years before you see the Bears really challenging. And if we want to be anywhere near where we're all hoping and expecting to be, and the way we should be with this roster, the way that it's been built, if you can't beat the Bears in Week 15 at home, then you won't deserve to be playing in the postseason anyway. So for me, I'm not surprised by the percentage. And as I say, I think, again, if you look at it player for player, man for man, the Browns should come out on top quite comfortable.
Fair play. And you know what? The only thing that we'll say about the Texans game in Week 16, our running's quite nice, isn't it? At home to the Texans, literally no one said a loss or a tie in this. All wins across the board. 100% of Browns fans said that we're going to beat the Texans at home, of which therefore means that we're going to be eating humble pie. Some Houston Texans fan is going to find this recording, screenshot this exact screen. So I'm just going to flip the bird right now, just in case they decide to use this exact moment. You know, for 100, that's confidence right there. But you can see why the Texans are a long way off. They're probably another 2 years away from being competitive. And Sean, as you said about the Bears in the previous game, realistically, you've got to be wiping these aside in order to be, having even semi-serious conversations about the playoffs. And Sean, I'm going to come to you now because you are the outlier in this one. Both Owain and I have us losing at home to the Jets in week 17, which will no doubt be a big game, I believe. I think that we have ourselves down at around 10 to 11 wins at this point. Browns fans agree with you by 54% that the Browns will beat the Jets. Convince us, if you will, kind sir.
Yeah, look, I think, as you say, this potentially is going to be a huge game. You know, hopefully at this stage, you're potentially playing for divisional wins or securing a wild card berth. The Jets would like to think that they will be in that mix as well. Obviously, for the Jets, lots riding on the trade for Aaron Rodgers. No reason to believe that he won't be successful. However, let's also not discredit the fact that they're playing in an equally tough division. Miami should be good. Buffalo, we know, should be good. And obviously, Bill Belichick will always make sure that New England are competitive. So, they've got 6 really tough games within the division to navigate through as well. I think the Browns will be stinging from last year's loss to them. I think that was one that, ultimately you end with a 7-10 record and you are what your record is at the end of the year, but that just felt like a real dagger in the heart, that game. It was a game that the Browns had won. 13 points up with the ball with less than 2 minutes to go, no timeouts for the opposition. There is no way you should ever, ever lose that game. So I do think the Browns will be smarting from that. I think it'll be a tight one, don't get me wrong. But like I say, I think for me, again, going back to what I've said previously, if you want to be in the serious conversation, these are the kind of games that you're going to have to get done, get over the line. You're at home. I think there's the potential that, correct me if I'm wrong, is it week 17 and week 18 now can be flexed sort of right the way up to the sort of almost the last. Yeah, so it's got a chance that this might even end up being a Sunday night football.
This is a Thursday night football. No, this is a Thursday night football.
Oh, is it? Oh, right. There you go. Oh, do you know what? I've just actually looked at it. It's actually on my birthday. So there you go, mate. That's where we're going to win. It's my birthday. So there you go.
Now I know exactly where I will be on week 17, no doubt. Right. The last game of the season at the Bengals. Now, I'm assuming that we are considering this, if it's competitive, it being losses across the board. 19% of Browns fans have also said that 19% have said that we'll win it. So there's obviously an 81% saying not. Obviously, if the Bengals have got this wrapped up beforehand, you'd probably switch that, wouldn't you? But it also depends as to where we are as well. Probably not worth getting into it too much because week 18 is a bit of a shamble. There's a reason why you don't play fantasy in week 18. And it's probably the same for actually making up predictions as well. So let's jump into what that actually means. And if anyone's been keeping count, fair play to you. I couldn't keep up as we were going along. Sean and UK Browns fans more optimistic than me and Owain by 1. Only the 1. I was surprised. Sean going for 12-5, the same as Browns fans. Myself and Owain 11-6. I was quite shocked actually, Owain. You'd gone as high as 11. Did you realise you'd gone as high as 11?
Yeah, I think I get a little bit of a bad rap for being Mr. Pessimist. I like to think of myself.
I thought maybe 10, 9 to 10 would have been more your range from the way in which you've been talking. But fair play to you. 11-6.
Mr. Realist, I am. I said we were going to be shit last year, and we were shit last year. So, I expect us to be.
I'm fully on board.
That's what my record's going to reflect.
I am not coming after you for this one, mate, because you were pretty much on the money last year. And if you're on the money this year, then we are flipping partying. 11 wins would be great. 12, obviously, Sean, even better. But just happy to be in those kind of conversations this year. And we've all said divisional round exit. So, yeah, realistic. I think that would turn out to be. You'll see in a second as to whether or not the lads believe that we'll go through as division champs or not. But even Browns fans, 36% of them said divisional round exit, of which was just a bit higher than wild card exit at 32%. So there is a belief that we'll be in the playoff picture, but not last particularly long.
Well, I will put it out there that I have got a ticket for the Browns to win the conference. I've got quite a large amount on Browns winning the division.
Yes, we both ran to put that on, but that was back when Lamar Jackson's contract negotiations were still in the mire.
I still feel pretty good about that. So,
well, yes, you are, because I'll come on to the divisions now. So we asked everyone as to who they thought would win in each division. Browns fans believe with me that the Bengals will still do it. 43% of Browns fans said the Bengals. I say the Bengals too. I think that they've just got a bit too much roster-wise for it, but not running away with it. I think it'll only be by about a game or two. I want Sean, you've both said the Browns. I mean, obviously you're in the conversation when you say 11 to 12. I mean, what do you see happening with the Bengals or the Ravens this year? Let's start with you, Sean.
I just think if you look at the schedule, I think the schedule for the Bengals in particular is a really tricky one. If you look at the games that they're playing sort of different to the games that we're playing, and you just focus on those ones alone, you've got games against the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Vikings. They're the three alternative games to the games that we're playing. Those three are particularly, interesting and intriguing matchups. I know they've seemingly got the Chiefs' number in recent times, but that is New Year's Eve, 9:25 UK kickoff. So that'll be a lovely way to bring in the new year if there's something riding on that. I just think, I think if the Browns can get to 12 wins, and obviously we've just gone through the schedule, it's a bit of a futile exercise pre-season, as you say. But if you get to 12 wins won the division last year. It was a 12-4 record for Cincinnati because they obviously didn't complete the Monday Night Football game against Buffalo. So, it would have either been 13-4 or 12-5. I think if you can get to 12 wins, that's going to win divisions more often than not. And to obviously get to that 12 wins, I think I've probably got us going, correct me if I'm wrong, 4-2 in the division. So that's a positive divisional record. So all of those kind of things when it comes to tiebreakers and all of that kind of thing is going to be really, really crucial. So, like I say, if the Browns can get to 12, then I think they'll be in really good shape.
Yeah, Owain, you said win the league off 11, win the division off 11. So was this done when Joe Burrow was seemingly out for the first few weeks of the season, or do you still have confidence here?
Yeah, it was. However, I still think we should win the division. Looking at the rosters, like Sean said earlier, I do believe that the Browns roster is the best in the division. If they don't win the division, then in my opinion, that will be because Deshaun Watson hasn't returned to his former play. And if that happens, that happens. It is what it is. But I think Barry has put the Browns roster in a really, really, really good spot. And
Agreed.
if Watson turns out to be what AB thinks he is, then I think they should win the division.
Yeah, I fired up Madden last night and started a franchise mode, and I saw that the Browns were 3 points up on the Bengals in terms of their overall. And I had to double take for a second to be like, what was there like a major injury? But no, everyone was out there. So on paper, at least, it does seem to corroborate with what you say there, where the Browns are best on paper. But where have we heard that before? But yeah, I think there's an argument for both of these. I think there's an argument for the Ravens as well if their offense really tears up. But I think that we all agreed that the Pittsburgh Steelers should be absolutely nowhere near this, right?
Like I say, we touched on it earlier when we mentioned the games. I've seen a lot of various different sort of reports on it, but for me, until proven otherwise, often it comes down to the strength of the quarterback play. I think we're all optimistic, rightly or wrongly, that former sort of glories, if you like, are going to return. They obviously didn't at the back end of last year. Obviously optimistic that a good training camp and all of that kind of stuff is hopefully going to prove to be the difference maker. And certainly then, we're in the conversation for having one of the best quarterbacks, not only in the division, potentially in the conference. So that should be the difference maker. Pittsburgh certainly are in that position.
Yeah, let's move on now to the other divisions that are in the league. AFC South, I don't think we need to touch on this too much. We're all in agreement that Jacksonville will roll the AFC South. The Titans, as we discussed earlier, in a bit of a roster retool in the Colts are going to be struggling for probably another year at least, and the Texans for probably another 3. It's a good year to be facing the AFC South, just like it was 4 years ago. It was good to be facing the AFC South as well. 83% of fans believe that Jacksonville will take the division. There was a few entries for the Titans and the Colts as well, but predominantly Jacksonville. The AFC East. So the reason as to why I didn't touch on it too much whilst we were talking about the Jets game. Owain, you are the only one of the 3 of us and the fans choosing the Bills at 75%. Myself and Sean also choosing Buffalo. You've gone with the Jets. Explain yourself, sir.
This could be spectacularly wrong come the end of the season. I think it's so boom or bust what's going to happen in New York this year. They're either going to finish top of the division or 3rd because the Patriots are going to stink. But yeah, I just think on paper their roster's really, really good. Like, in my opinion, the roster, take the QBs aside, the roster's better than Buffalo's, in my opinion. So, if Rodgers plays to Rodgers' ability, then there's no reason why they shouldn't win this division. I think the Dolphins are probably in with a fair shout if they can stay healthy as well. So personally, I wouldn't be hugely surprised if Buffalo finished 3rd. I know that would be a really, really hot take most places, but that wouldn't, massively surprise me.
Here's a question for you. So your big, bold one last year was Jacksonville to win the AFC South. Are you more or less confident on the Jets here? Because I'd say it was just as bold.
I was quite confident in the Jags. Like, believe it or not, I was really confident in the Jags.
Oh, I know you were. And you made me look like a complete idiot last year.
Because I just thought that division was really bad. The difference is in this one, you've got 3 teams that legitimately could win the division, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, the roster's really good. So as long as Rodgers plays to Rodgers' abilities, I think they will win the division. Yeah, and I will be checking the odds. I know I checked the Jags one last year and turned it down because I didn't think the odds were high enough. But I will be checking the odds on the Jets after this.
Funny. So AFC West, no discussion. KC sweep the board. 88% of fans agree as well. The NFC North, once again, we're coming to a wine, and once again, it's one of these new juggernauts that have taken your fancy, the Detroit Lions. Everyone else has said the Vikings. 42% of fans also agree. Get back up on your pedestal. And also, are you more confident in the Lions than you are the Jets? That's probably the question I should lead with.
Yeah, I am. I think Minnesota were the most overrated team in the NFL last year in terms of their record. I think they weren't great, other than Justin Jefferson. They weren't great. I think them adding Jordan Addison's gonna make a difference to their offense this year. I really do think so. However, I'm not a massive Kirk Cousins believer. I think that's fair to say. And I think
Did quarterback not change your mind?
yeah, Detroit getting better and better. As the season went on last year, they've not got any worse. Jameson Williams is going to miss some time, obviously, because of the gambling stuff, but they've got enough, behind him to be able to deal with that. I didn't love their draft selections and the positional value they got there, but yeah, I do feel quite confident Detroit are going to win this division.
I just feel like the Lions and the Jets actually are both like. I feel like the league really wants them to do well, so we're hearing so much about the Lions and the Jets this year, and indeed last year as well. This has been brewing for a while. Just wondering as to whether or not we're potentially succumbing to a bit of the hype, but I'm not going to make a fool of myself like I did last year, though. I am respectfully understanding your decisions and moving swiftly along, mate. Probably best I do that. Sean, one for you to stand up on your pedestal for this one. Myself and Owen have both said the Bucks to retain the NFC South. In Baker we trust. You are carrying the flag for the New Orleans Saints with the Browns fans. 46% say the Saints. Your opening statement, please.
They've got the best quarterback in the division. It's, for me, as simple as that, really. No, I think Derek Carr's a reasonable quarterback. There's obviously the debate as to whether he's enough to get you all the way, which obviously, LA have decided he's not. That's not LA, Las Vegas, have decided he's not. But I certainly think he's a massive upgrade on anything else in this division. I think they'll obviously miss Alvin Kamara at the start of the season, but I think Jamal Williams is an excellent pickup. I think he had a really good season with the Lions last year. So I'm not overly concerned about the backfield to start the season. Thought Chris Olave was as good as any rookie wide receiver was last year. I just think overall, like I say, they're probably just about, for me, got the best roster in the division. I don't think it's going to be a huge, sort of record. I would imagine 10-7 is more than enough to win the NFC South. So I can't imagine them going to be any sort of juggernaut. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not expecting them to go any further than being knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. But like I say, for me, I just think they've got the best quarterback in the division.
I actively think that because when I do this, I go on to playoff prediction. I plot every individual game and I see what pops out at the end. I'm pretty sure I had Tampa to win the division on 8-7-1. I think it was, and I think it was that the Saints were also 8-7-1, but the tie was with Tampa, and Tampa won the home game or something stupid. So they ended up going through on the tiebreak. I do think it will be close. I think I just believe in the overall roster of Tampa and think that Baker will do enough in a simplified offense, potentially. Nothing to say about the NFC.
Baker will be on the bench by week 6.
I sincerely doubt it. Kyle Trask has looked like complete trash throughout the preseason. Anyone that says otherwise just hoping rather than anything else. Baker looked streets ahead. Philadelphia to sweep the NFC East by the looks of it. No one holds the NFC East, but we have said poppycock to that. 83% of Browns fans agreeing there. And 83% of Browns fans have agreed with us that San Francisco win the NFC West. Quite a high number there. Should Seattle be considered for this at all, especially with the fact that Brock Purdy is the guy that they're going forward with as their starting QB, or is this a rather safe pick, Owen?
No, I do think the Seahawks are going to be good, so I think it's definitely a debate to be had. I'm generally just looking at the odds now, and the Seahawks are 2-1, so the odds are not a million miles away.
Yeah.
So it is going to be a dogfight between the two of them, and then you've obviously got the Rams at 10-1, and then Cards at 25-1, which shows obviously the gulf in class between the first two and the second two in the division. So it'll be an interesting to watch this year.
Yeah. Did you look at the Lions odds?
I did. They are favourites to win the division.
Like we're talking like beyond evens, essentially.
They're 11-8, so
Right.
not the worst odds in the world.
Fair enough. Then there's only one more thing of which we've got here, which is who's going to win it all. No one said Cleveland. I'm not necessarily surprised. We've all picked something different. Well, this is interesting. So to round off today's show, folks, let's give an impassioned speech as to why another team is going to win the Super Bowl that isn't us. So Browns fans have sided with me that Kansas will retain the Super Bowl. I just think that they've got the best run program, both on paper and also what you see with your eyes. Patrick Mahomes is just a perennial winner. I think that he's got exactly what he needs around him. I think that, even if there was a slow start, they always seem to turn it around in November, December, no matter what. They have the moxie to win in the big games. I think that they have a much more difficult path to the Super Bowl than either of the main NFC title contenders. But iron sharpens iron. I think that the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC, and that the AFC trumps the NFC by a considerable distance. There's a slight bit of bias towards that as well, but just in general, I think that KC are an extra level ahead, which is what we saw last term as well. Awine, you said the Eagles to win it all. Let's hear your impassioned play.
Yeah, I think they were really close last year. I think Hurts will continue to get better. The experience of last year and losing in the big one will have a positive effect on him. As a roster, they've got better. Obviously, had supposedly, I know it's hard to say, but supposedly I had a good draft. If Jalen Carter hits the ground running, they could be real dangerous. So, also them being streets ahead in the NFC last year was a decision-making factor, because I do think Kansas City are going to have a tougher time to get through the gauntlet of the AFC as well. So that's, a big reason why I went for an NFC team rather than an AFC team, because I think it's, more predictable that the Eagles actually get to the Super Bowl. So yeah, I think the Eagles are in a good spot. I'm quite interested to see why Sean has gone for the 49ers. That's quite an interesting pick.
It is, but let's set it up a bit more. So, San Francisco 49ers, they amass this massive wealth of picks. They give it to the Miami Dolphins for Trey Lance. Trey Lance is the future. Trey Lance is everything. Give him away for peanuts. We are with Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy full time. And he's going to win it all. Sean, take it away.
I just think that's a sign of a really good organisation, mate. You realise if you've made a mistake and you don't dwell on it. I think that's an incredibly brave move. It also, for me, puts them in win now mode, because if they don't, then they're obviously going to have that thrown down the throats that was ultimately the decision that cost them, that they shouldn't have done what they've done. I thought Brock Purdy looked incredibly good in his limited action last year. Let's not forget that, yes, the Eagles handily defeated them in the conference game, but that was with Brock Purdy throwing a grand total of 4 passes before coming out of the game for Josh Johnson. We'll never really know how that game would have paid out. For me, I'm a massive Kyle Shanahan fan. I think his offense is incredibly efficient. I think Christian McCaffrey took it to a whole new level, with a sort of premier running back. They sort of had different ones, the likes of Jeff Wilson, Mostert, that have all done reasonable jobs. But McCaffrey, for me, just obviously put it to another sort of extreme level. I think Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are really, really good players in this scheme. And I think defensively, they threw a ton of money at Javon Hargrave to make arguably the most dominant defensive line in the game even better. I think they're really, really good in terms of the defense. Overall, I just think they've got an excellent roster. I do think it'll likely come down to a rematch between the Eagles and the 49ers. They do seem to be the two that pretty much everybody universally is picking in the NFC side. They do seem to be head and shoulders above the rest. Yeah, there's a lot of love for the Lions that we've talked about previously. The Vikings, obviously, as Owain said, had a good year, but won every single close game, which is unlikely to happen. Although I do think that they're still, probably the team to beat until proved otherwise in that division. But I certainly think the Eagles and the 49ers stick out like a sore thumb as being the two best in that division. And for that reason and that reason alone, I'm just more confident that one of those two from the NFC will get there. We're probably all overthinking it, mate. And as you say, the best quarterback in the game plays in Kansas City. There's every chance that this becomes the new Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick era, and it's now Reid and Mahomes, isn't it? And we could be talking about this for the next 5-6 years, until proven otherwise, because we all thought they were going to struggle last year, and they ultimately went and won the whole thing, despite the turnover of the roster. So, as you say, it could be as simple and as straightforward as what's looking us in the face, but just for variety, mate, I really like San Francisco.
Yeah, a nice broad view there of different opinions. I think that's something of which everyone has at this time of year. No one knows anything. Week 1 is not here just yet. A few more days until the Lions take on the Chiefs. That's just enough time for Owain to waste all of his money putting copious different accumulators on the Lions and the Bucks to win the division. Yes, I did see that image that you put in the WhatsApp chat, mate. And for me to keep making terrible picks in fantasy, just to let you know as to how the rest of the week looks, we will be doing a dedicated pod for the Bengals game. Time to be confirmed later on in the week, but it'll definitely be before the game. We promise. We will be at Felson's Birmingham on Broad Street on Sunday to watch the Browns-Bengals game as part of the full 10 Yards kickoff. If you'd like any more information on that, please do reach out to us at Believe in Brit or Full 10 Yards. Or if you'd just like to go straight to book your spot, go to full10yards.co.uk/kickoff. We also have our Pick'ems League live and up and running for this season. It launched a few days ago as Owain prodded me literally seconds after the email came up. We'll be doing our pick'ems for each week as we do our weekly podcasts. The Fantasy League is now up and running. That's what we're currently drafting now. So thank you everyone who's participated in that. I believe that's everything. Oh, I have a couple of spare full 10 yards guides. So if anyone wants one of those for a few quid, then please let me know, because the missus says that if they're not out of the house by Sunday, then they will be out of the house by Sunday, by hook or by crook. So please give them a good home before Louise shows them the flamethrower. Much appreciated, everyone. Thank you very much for listening. We're the Believe in Brits podcast, and we'll see you later this week.